now, here's 5-Star Wrestling Podcast Eddie Valiant with Eddie Valiant's Hot Take.
Welcome, everybody, to Eddie Valiant's Hot Take. That's right, I'm your host, Eddie Valiant. This week, there was no episode of 5-Star Wrestling Podcast, and we apologize for that. There was a family emergency, and here at 5-Star, we take care of our brothers and sisters. So, to kind of fill the time and fill the void of not having an episode of 5-Star Wrestling Podcast, I have taken it upon myself to record an episode of Eddie Valiant's Hot Take, where I will be discussing today topics like SummerSlam, King of the Ring, and many, hopefully many more. But I want to welcome you guys. It's been a while, as I said, and we had a huge pay-per-view happen over the weekend. Not to mention, we also had NXT TakeOver Toronto, which happened the day before that, and I guess we can get into that as well. But I definitely want to talk NXT TakeOver and SummerSlam because I felt it was a return to form for the WWE. And what I mean about that is we've all been bitching and complaining about how we're so unhappy with the product that it's driving us nuts. Then we're ecstatic when we hear that Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff have taken jobs, yet we haven't really noticed much of a change, although I suspect a little bit of a change is noticeable with Monday Night Raw. Unfortunately, on SmackDown, we don't know if Eric Bischoff really has his fangs into that show yet, only because of the rumors of hearing that Vince has literally squashed every script. So we're not exactly sure. Then we complained about some results of certain matches at pay-per-views. What are they thinking? Why are we watching this? But I gotta be honest with you guys that I thought that NXT TakeOver is as good as it gets. That show never disappoints. But SummerSlam was the key. And I thought SummerSlam was probably one of the better you thought I was going to say best. But one of the better pay-per-views of 2019. And there's definitely a couple of reasons for that. And I'm going to get into it pretty soon. But as I said, let's start with NXT TakeOver. And the very first match was the Street Profits versus Undisputed Era. Now, I was expecting this to actually be a very dynamite match. I thought to myself, what is better than Undisputed Era and the Street Profits, right? But the match started off just very sloppy. They weren't in sync with each other. It just seemed it was very off in that first 5 minutes of the match. Maybe 3 minutes, probably being too harsh. Probably 3 minutes of the match. But then all of a sudden you could tell as the match was going on that they were getting more in rhythm with each other. And then all of a sudden the sparks started to happen. And then the match ended on a very high note. So Street Profits winning that match. Then we went into Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae. And I've got to tell you, man, they turned it up to 11 right from the start. And I'm so proud of Candice LeRae. I'm loving what Io Shirai is doing, this very dark side. Not to mention the move sets that she was pulling off in the beginning. It was like, wow, I've never saw this side of Io Shirai before. Io Shirai eventually took the win with that leg scissor trying. I don't even know what it was, but she was squeezing the life literally out of Candice LeRae, and she won. So congratulations to Io Shirai. Loved it. And you want to establish her as this dark side, evil, woman in the WWE. Perfect way to capitalize on that. Technical submission right there. Then we move on, and it was a triple threat match that I was so looking forward to, and I would be a liar if I didn't say that I was hoping for Velveteen Dream to lose. But I'm going to explain it, so don't get me wrong on this. The reason I said that was because I wanted to see Velveteen Dream lose for him to get called up to the main roster. I thought he'd be perfect for the main roster. There's another superstar on this card as well that I thought the same thing. But nonetheless, I wanted to see Pete Dunne capture the North American title. I thought it'd be cool. He was the UK champ. Now make him the NXT North American champion. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but we got a stud of a match. I mean, stellar matchup between all three of them. Very creative. Velveteen Dream pulling off the impossible in the end for the win. And then the other superstar that I was talking about was Shayna Baszler. I wanted Shayna Baszler to lose. I got to be honest, this was probably the most disappointing match in my opinion. If I was to rank these matches, this would definitely be number 5 on my list. I was just not satisfied. Way too slow. It seemed awkward at times. It seemed like Mia Yim didn't really know what she should be doing. That's all I'm going to say about that. Thankfully, Shayna Baszler won the match because I couldn't see Mia Yim winning after the performance she put on. All right, and then last but certainly not least was the 3 Stages of Hell match, or as the WWE put it, the best 2 out of 3 falls match. Now, going into it, Adam Cole picked a stipulation, Johnny Gargano picked a stipulation, and then William Regal would pick the last stipulation of the match. So Adam Cole decided that he wanted to have a wrestling match with Johnny Gargano, and that went over it went over. Anyway, so then Johnny Gargano's stipulation was that he picked I believe it was a no holds barred match, or a street fight. It was a street fight, excuse me. And then we had to wait to find out what William Regal picked, and his was apparently a no escape weapons in a cage match, which was unfreaking believable. It was the exclamation point on an amazing match. Now, as you know, the first match, the first fall, I should say, went pretty well. I mean, it was almost like you believed it that these guys had fought each other 3 times, right? They knew each other's moves. They were expecting what the other one was about to do. It was great. Steel chair was then introduced into the match, and of course, Johnny Gargano said, "You know what? Screw it. I'll give him the first fall." He says he could win a wrestling match. Cool. I'm going to nail him with the steel chair, and that's exactly what he did. All right, and then we get into the second fall, which is the street fight, and they fight all over the arena. They're bashing each other and everything. Finally, Adam Cole gets into a position that he doesn't want to be because Johnny Gargano launches him into a chair that was set up between the turnbuckles. After hitting it, Johnny Gargano immediately places Adam Cole into Gargano escape. That fall is over because Adam Cole taps out. And we go into the third fall as the steel cage comes lowering down, very ominous looking and very dangerous looking, and there's chairs and there's tables and there's all sorts of goodies strapped with zip ties to the cage. So pretty fun. Actually, it's probably my favorite fall of the whole match, so kudos to William Regal for that one. And eventually Adam Cole kind of runs away to this table that's on the top of the cage. They both fall off of it. Johnny Gargano getting the worst of the fall. Adam Cole covers him. 1, 2, 3. Adam Cole is still your NXT champion. So congratulations to Adam Cole there. Now, as far as ranking all the matches, here I go. And I'm going to try my best to do this for you guys. So as I said before, I'm going Shayna Baszler, Mia Yim, number 5. Number 4 is the Street Profits versus Undisputed Era's Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. Number 3 would be the triple threat match that saw Velveteen Dream, Pete Dunne, and so on. Number 2, Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae, because for a while that was my match of the night until the number 1 match, Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano. They stole the show as they should have, and they did. So that is NXT TakeOver Toronto, and now we're bracing ourselves for SummerSlam, which is the very next day. And what a long day, starting at 5 o'clock. But it didn't feel that long. For once, it didn't feel like WrestleMania, where you were wondering, like, Jesus H. Christ, when is this going to end? No. WWE did it right. They saved all the pre-show matches till about maybe a half hour left in the pre-show. Then we kicked off right away with a stellar match. For what it's worth, Becky Lynch versus Natalya was not that bad. It wasn't that bad of a match. We saw some pretty different ways to see somebody lock in a sharpshooter. Then we moved on to Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler. And I have to say that the WWE did right by Goldberg this time around. Now, Goldberg, you remember the last time we saw him, was that disastrous matchup with The Undertaker. But this one was good. I like how it started off. Dolph Ziggler kind of not really confronting Goldberg in the first few moments of the match. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he tries to end it right away with a super kick. But eventually, we all know how this goes. He gets a spear, and then it's the jackhammer. But what I liked really about this match was what happened afterwards with this new side of Dolph Ziggler saying, hey, come on, you call that, whatever, and then keep antagonizing until they keep coming back. And that's what Goldberg did. He demolished Dolph Ziggler a couple more times before finally calling it a night. So we move on from that, and we go right to AJ Styles versus Ricochet, which, if you had listened to 5-Star, that week's 5-Star Wrestling Podcast episode, you would have heard me say that I thought that this had the potential to be the match of the night, and I got to be honest, I was not happy with this match. I thought it was a decent match, I just didn't think it was great. And I'm kind of hoping they move away from Ricochet versus AJ for a little bit, just to kind of give them fresh new feuds, maybe. AJ being badass as usual with Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson by his side. And then what I thought was Ricochet wearing a Nightwing outfit apparently is an ode to some dumb Disney game called Kingdom Hearts. I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for that, but I'm not a fan. Anyways, moving on. We had Bayley versus Ember Moon. This was another match that I wasn't satisfied with, but I wasn't disappointed. It's weird. I'm somewhere in the middle. Sometimes I really like to believe that when I'm watching a match that one of them has a chance to win. And I didn't really believe that after 3 minutes into this match. I just was like, nah, Bayley's walking out of this with the win. It's obvious. It's not Ember Moon's time. And, that's what ended up happening, unfortunately. But anyways, we move on from that. Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon. If Kevin was to lose, he had to leave. And then they added the fact of placing Elias as a special guest referee on the outside of the ring, which added a whole new element to the match. And eventually it broke down, and Kevin Owens found a way to win by eliminating Elias. I really believe that Kevin winning that match was what was best for business. He knew it was going to happen. He knew Kevin Owens wasn't going to be forced to quit. It's nice to believe that was a possibility, but we all knew it wasn't going to happen. We move on to an interesting match, Charlotte Flair versus Trish Stratus, the battle of two eras in women's wrestling. And I didn't expect much out of this match, but I've got to be honest, I was very satisfied. I was stratisfied. Pun intended right there. See how I did that? But I was very satisfied by the end of the match. I thought this was one of the better matches on the card. Probably the best women's match on the card. And definitely a step up above everybody else's matches. There was a lot of drama going back and forth, which was what I liked. There was, chances where you thought, oh my God, is Trish really going to win this? And then moments where you're like, no. Charlotte's got this. I know she has this. And that's what I loved about it. And I just want to thank Trish for everything. I know this was her last match. She said it was. God bless everything you've done. And we look forward to whatever it is you decide to do with the rest of your future. All right, and then followed a match that I was hoping was going to give us a lot. It was Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton. And what I meant by that was, we all know, history has told us that if it wasn't for Randy Orton taking out Ali, Kofi Kingston wouldn't be put in this situation. I really wanted there to be an element of danger. I really wanted to feel like Kofi was going to lose and that Kofi Mania was going to be over, but the match just ended in such a dumb way, a double count out. I mean, are you serious? I would have rather had taken a disqualification from Kofi than a double count out. Now, I get it. A double count out doesn't hurt both competitors, but it hurts my brain. I didn't like it, was not satisfied with it. Wasn't stratified, if you know what I mean. So, just saying, I just wanted a little bit more out of that match. But what happened next at SummerSlam was truly magical. And that, my friends, was the wrestling debut of The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. That's right, and let me tell you, it was the best moment of the night. Seeing the presentation, him coming out, seeing the lantern, which was basically his head with the eyes sewn shut and the lantern inside his mouth. That was just awesome. Awesome. Then the theme music being done by Code Orange. Fantastic. The whole presentation was a 10 out of 10. Let me tell you, 5 stars right there. And the match wasn't bad either. He totally destroyed Finn Balor, which was kind of expected. Finn had a little bit of a chance, but the Fiend ultimately put him out with the mandible claw, and all was said and done in less than 4 minutes. Seeing the Fiend come out and do his whole thing was exactly what you hoped the writers and everybody involved in this would get right with Bray Wyatt. And thankfully they do it right from now on, moving forward, because the Fiend can be a very, very special character moving forward. Finally, the last match of the night, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't expecting much out of this one either. I really thought that Brock Lesnar was going to squash Seth Rollins. Boy, was I wrong. I mean, he kind of did, but Seth held himself in there, and Seth just did phenomenal in the match. It was actually a very, very good match. I got to give him credit. Seth regaining the WWE Universal Championship, and that was the end of the pay-per-view. Right? Riding off into the sunset with his leather strap back. What more could you ask for from SummerSlam? Now, as I said, some of these matches, you're listening to me, you may be like, man, he was kind of disappointed in the pay-per-view. I mean, I wasn't. There wasn't really a moment where I was, bored out of my mind, because I was into it. Just I expected better results out of some of the matches and better wrestling from some of the competitors in it. But now I'm going to rank and tell you my top matches of SummerSlam. So at number 9, and a lot of you are probably going to disagree with this, I got Kofi versus Randy Orton. At number 8, I got Bayley versus Ember Moon. At number 7, AJ Styles versus Ricochet. At number 6, Becky versus Natalya. Now my top 5. At number 5, Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler. Number 4, Kevin Owens versus Shane. Number 3, Trish versus Charlotte. Number 2 and number 1, I'm going to tell you like this. At number 2, I got The Fiend versus Finn Balor because of the presentation and everything that happened. At number 1, I have Seth versus Brock. Now, if I was going by moments, the top moment would definitely be The Fiend and the presentation of him coming down to the ring, his entrance, everything. That would be the number 1. But the number 1 match, Seth versus Brock. And that does it for SummerSlam and NXT TakeOver. I want to move on to something else. For those of you that follow Matt Riddle on Twitter, a lot of you know that he has a little bit of a disdain for some of the... I don't even know if it's disdain for some of the Attitude Era guys. I think he feels like he's being attacked by a lot of the Attitude Era guys. I know Booker T has said things about Matt Riddle. I know various others have been very vocal about his skills in the ring. And then I know Matt Riddle has been literally shitting on Goldberg for a while. I mean, if you follow his Twitter, it's very funny. But he ultimately makes a good point, and he makes the point that I have been making for years. So I'm pretty sure I'm expecting Bill Goldberg to want to have a sit-down talk with me, because I think Goldberg was always a shitty wrestler to begin with. But apparently there was an altercation that happened backstage at SummerSlam. They do a thing on Twitter that you can follow, the WWE does, where you can watch a bunch of wrestlers watching SummerSlam. And you can hear them talk about it, various other things. And apparently while Matt Riddle was on his way, he had a little bit of a confrontation with Bill Goldberg. But let Matt Riddle tell you the story.
So, William, I'm walking by and I see his locker room. I've already seen Brock's, but I see Goldberg's locker room. And I'm like, I'm trying to get a peek. And I'm looking. All of a sudden, pow! Big shoulder, 300 pounds at least. I look up, it's Bill Goldberg. I'm like, Bill Goldberg. He goes, oh, we got some talking to do. And I'm like, well, we can talk anytime, bro. He's like, yeah? And I'm like, yeah. And then he's like, and I was like, all right, bro, well, anytime. He's like, I'm not your bro. And I'm like, all right, bro, like, take it easy, whatever. And then he's like, yeah, we'll see. I'll see you later. And I was like, and hey, it was a pleasure meeting you. I go, the pleasure was all mine, bro. And then he goes, I'm not your bro. And then I walked away, and I had to come here.
So it's kind of funny to hear, Matt Riddle talk about this. But you wonder, where is it going to go, right? What are they going to do with it? Are we going to actually see Riddle versus Goldberg? Because if we are, I'm down for it. But then the very next night, I believe it was the next night, this was a little bit of a fail from Matt Riddle, at least, where he tweets a picture of all this stuff. It's various trading cards of Attitude Era guys, and on it there's a note on the bottom. It says, whenever you want, you're next. And it says Bill Goldberg. Get it? Goldberg, not get it? Bill Goldberg, not Goldberg. A little bit of a fail on the part of Mr. Matthew Riddle, but nonetheless, I still want to see it. Tweet me at Eddie Valiant 82. Again, that's Eddie Valiant 82 on Twitter. And tell me how you feel about that. Tell me if you want to see Bill Goldberg versus Matt Riddle. I certainly do. And the WWE is encouraging Mr. Matthew Riddle. So we'll see what happens with that. So the WWE decided that they wanted to bring back the King of the Ring, which was a tournament that I loved. I didn't even realize that before it became a pay-per-view that it was a house show thing that happened in New England. How the hell am I supposed to know? Nobody ever took me to wrestling shows. But nonetheless, the King of the Ring was a tournament that introduced us to Stone Cold Steve Austin in the Austin 316 era. We saw one of the best gimmicks for Owen Hart in the King of Hearts when he won it. And then eventually the tournament just started slowly turning into a joke. And that's because the WWE turned it into a joke. And they didn't properly push guys that won when they should have. And it all started with William Regal, I swear. When William Regal became King of the Ring, it was like, we don't care. They had great guys. Wade Barrett won the King of the Ring. What happened to him? Yeah, he's gone. But nonetheless, they got it. And I think they're going to give it a serious push this time around, because I know the WWE needs it. Their ratings dropped right after Raw Reunion, so the King of the Ring is here to spike up the ratings. And their upcoming war with AEW is looming near, so they need whatever they can do. I'm definitely looking forward to it. Should be some interesting angles. I'm picking Drew McIntyre to win the whole thing. We'll see how it goes. That's all I got to talk about for this week. I want you guys to remember, follow 5-Star Wrestling Podcast at the number 5_star podcast. Again, the number 5 5_star podcast. You can also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5star wrestling podcast. And as Juicy Josh would ask, yes, you do spell it out. Again, follow me on Twitter at EddieValiant82. That is at EddieValiant82. And if you want to see my top matches of the week every week, you can do so by going to mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Again, that's mrxpunchout.wordpress.com. Basically, Mr. X's Punch-Out. And you can check that stuff out there. But for now, I will see you guys next time. And stay tuned for another episode of 5 Star Wrestling Podcast coming soon.